gives people a sense of how it acts with accuracy.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining in. People are still joining with us. So we are already 5 minutes up. So we'll get started and let people join. Meanwhile, we are in between the session. So yeah, good afternoon everyone. We are back with another EMS session today. We did a couple of them. We have completed 3, 4 odd sessions before. So I hope you all are excited for the same EMS session. And thank you so much for joining us today. So today we will be discussing frequently asked questions on catalog digitization, catalog scoring, and catalog indexing. And my name is Shakti Singh, and I'm part of Factor Skill. And I'll be your host for today's session under ONDC Presents Build for Bharat AMS session covering. So this is supported by Startup India, sponsored by Google Cloud, Antelope, Protein, and Paytm, powered by Hacker Skill. So before we move ahead, the primary agenda for today's AMA as follows. We will be answering those questions, which will be filled with you in the Google form that we have circulated. We've got questions coming in from all over people who are participating under these categories. And we'll be answering those questions first. And if time allows, we'll open up the mic for the audience. We'll pick up questions from the chat if that we have that privilege of time with us. So we also have our esteemed mentors, our esteemed speakers for the day, who will be answering and helping us, understand in depth about those problem statements that we are going to cover today. So I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists for today. Abey is there with us. Abey is working in the network expansion vertical at ONDC. Along with Abey, we also have with us Vaibhav Goel, who is working at a position of Vice President of Network Governance at ONDC. So we have both our speakers here with us, Abey and Vaibhav. If you can just, introduce yourself if I may miss out anything, and then before we can move ahead during the session. Abey, why don't you go first?
Hey, hi. This is Abey here. I work for NDC and I'm based out of Bangalore. I work in the network expansion team and help various buyer app, seller app in various functions in getting more orders from network, so solving various problems. And one of the projects we are working on is catalog as a service. So you can reach out to me and we can also meet in Bangalore if needed. You can reach out to me. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you so much. Vaibhav, if you're there with us.
Yeah, hi. Hi, I'm Vaibhav. Firstly, I'd like to add to what Abey just said. Abey has not given us full introduction. He has been a founder himself. He's done a lot of work in the logistics space as well. So I think his catalog is just one particular piece that he's leading. He's helping ONDC on a lot of fronts, being having set up a business and a sizable business himself. So I think that is like a one major piece. And his knowledge in a lot of these places like cataloging, last mile delivery is immense. So guys, reach out to him if you have any kind of any issues or any knowledge session that you want to have. He's a great resource that way. Personally, I am working in the network business operations team, if I have to call it, within ONDC. So we are trying to set up a lot of things of once a network participant goes live, how can they really scale their business on the network and take it from 1 to 100. Previously, I worked in Amazon for about 7-8 years. So that's a small introduction of myself. I'll be happy to take up the question that this panel has put in across. We'll also have some time for you guys to have raise out questions here itself. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that quick intro, Abey and Vaibhav. And thanks for adding up that, Vaibhav, for Abey. So especially, let's just quickly, I'll walk you through how are we going to proceed. We'll have Abey and Vaibhav explain those problem statements for us a little. And therefore, you guys can, meanwhile, send across chat questions in the chat as well. If you have any questions related to the topic, mention the topic and therefore ask the question so that we can pick up the right questions at the right time. And we can pick up some questions from the chat and mostly we're going to answer on the Google form questions that were sent from you guys as well, right? So first and foremost, we are going to cover catalog digitization. Abey Vaibhav, if one of you can pick up and help us understand in depth about the insights or what is the expectations that we are setting up on this problem statement.
Abby, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So let me just say how, to begin with, let me say why the catalog piece is a little important for us. There are a couple of things there. One is that the search of the product itself. So everybody knows what a catalog is, and I will not probably go deep into that. I would define it as a set of attributes against a particular SKU. Okay, and it could be for any category. It could be food, it could be grocery, any of it. So any particular item, we call it as a SKU, right? Stock keeping unit. And against that, we need certain attributes and certain information which enables various parties to talk to each other and have the common language or understanding of the product. Unlike single platforms, which have the benefit of they can sit in the same room and the front end and back end guys can sit together and thrash out what exactly each item means. We have the challenge that we have multiple buyer apps and multiple seller apps. And at times it's not possible for us to, everybody can't be sitting together, nor can everybody do 1:1. So even the smallest of seller platforms, seller NPs should be able to work with the largest of seller NPs with a certain protocol. So over the protocol, we have capability to send product details with categorization, etc. So that is what essentially a catalog is, and I'll not dwell deeper on that. So let me just go to the challenge or importance of it. What we expect is that the catalog should have, later I'm sure Weber will touch on that, what are the various aspects, the 3 C's of the catalog that we expect. So the catalog should have all the relevant information so that you can search and go from search and discovery and pass the information over network so that the order can be placed for that particular item. That is what is expected, right? So in the digitization part of it, let me tell you what the problem is. So we have n number of seller NPs, n number of buyer NPs. Now, each seller NP has to put in effort to bring their catalog up to a certain standard, which again on the network can be utilized appropriately. Because today everybody knows that the consumer experience matters a lot, and the look and feel of the protocol and the information therein becomes very critical for discovery, also to keep the customer engaged and to ensure that orders are placed. To that extent, we have the challenge of every small or big NP with different varying capabilities to provide catalog on network so that it really works. And similarly, on the buyer app side also, when it comes from multiple seller NPs, each person categorizing the product in different ways may not work, because then on the aggregate side, you want to show, say, all vegan products together. So then how do you do that? So there is a challenge of that side on the buyer apps. The larger buyer apps are actually solving it by having their own master catalogs and linking each product of a seller NP to a particular master catalog, etc. Some of you who are already engaged with the system will understand how this is, right? So the digitization project that we would like you to look at is to ensure that how a seller NP can easily get a seller to catalog their products by using apps, etc. And again, there is a question of different varying levels of seller sophistication, or what do you call that? The word would be their level of education, right? So there could be a seller NP who is an artisan in a village versus a seller NP who's using SAP and who's got corporate capabilities, right? So there are varying degrees of these seller NPs. How do you ensure that a small seller artisan sitting in Tanjore can actually take a photo of their product and that can be enabled, and the catalog of that can be generated with appropriate information to go live on network? That is what broadly we are looking at. So what are the various tools by which you can enable catalog creation by a seller or an NP on network? That is what is expected. Vaibhav, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think you've covered it well. I'll just, sort of re-summarize. Our ONDC's overall goal is to get the next million sellers up and running, right? Like, how do you get the undigitized digitized is the core problem. And the biggest problem that we have in that space is how do we digitize the selling SKUs of the catalog of the sellers who are not currently online. And in doing so, because it's going to be in large quantity, how do you get it done faster? So what is the pace of it? So the speed of digitization is one, and the quality of digitization is the second one. So what can be the technology? How can technology help? In quickly digitizing someone's catalog and digitize it at scale, and ensure that we get good quality digitized catalog is essentially the need of the hour, and that's what the problem statement sort of denotes.
Just to quickly add to that, it could also mean that, say, you are digitizing a kirana shop, then how do you digitize, say, using a barcode scanning approach, etc.? Can you digitize the store very quickly? That also can be part of the catalog process.
Sure. Thank you so much for briefing that out for all of us. Folks who have joined us who have selected catalog digitization as a problem statement to solve and build innovative solutions. You guys can put up your questions. I can see a few arriving in the chat. You can put up more questions in the chat and we'll take up all of the questions at the end of the explanation part. So coming down to the second problem statement of the day is catalog scoring. Abey Vaibhav, if you can help us with this as well.
Yeah, so I'll sort of take it up and then we can join in. I think catalog scoring, if I'm not wrong, is a foundational problem statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is essentially to be submitted by students, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So from that particular perspective, what we are saying is that we have an unbundled network, right? There is a buyer application which is not privy to the catalog coming in from so many multiple seller applications, and there are new seller applications which are coming in every day and in every domain, and hence one of the areas of sorting can be the quality of catalog, both sorting and filtering in some sense, right? Like, so we all know in different categories, the quality of catalog plays a huge role in driving conversion. Things like, for example, in fashion, unless and until, for example, you have 5 images, things just don't move forward. Similarly, we all know in food, a good quality image can really help in driving conversions. And hence, a scoring mechanism which can tell a buyer if a participant in a huge sense of whether the catalog is complete, whether the catalog is compliant with respect to the laws of that particular category, and whether the catalog is of good quality is of paramount importance. And if that particular mechanism can be developed, which can help drive that score and score in that particular granularity to a buyer application, that can be used then by buyer applications to drive more trust towards its customers, help them make better choices, drive conversion, so on and so forth. And also, this information can help seller applications also work with sellers to improve that particular catalog on the network. We can have ecosystem players who can help essentially drive better catalog over the network. So essentially, catalog scoring tries to address the problem of catalog quality and objectively measuring catalog quality for different categories and pass on that information over the network to the buyer.
Yeah, so this is where Vaibhav, your the three C's you often refer to: compliance, correctness, and completeness part, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Sure. Abby, you want to add something to it, or should
Yeah. So here we are not really prescribing, saying this is the weightage you have to give to each aspect or part of it, right? So that is for the person who's creating the system for catalog scoring to bring it out. So you have the end goal is to bring out good quality catalogs. And what is the technique or measurement methodologies that you use? So if you have an image, how do you ensure that it's the right image? It's not, say, an obscene image which is not allowed, etc. All of those things have to be there.
Right. Sure. Thank you so much for that quick brief, Vaibhav and Abby. We're seeing questions coming in now. So just a small request to everybody, now that we are covering 3 problem statements, if you can just put across the problem statement name before you ask any questions, so that it'll be easy for us to pick up based on which problem statement are you referring to. So moving on to the third problem statement of the day, which is Catalogue Indexing Engine. So Abby, Vaibhav, any one of you can help us with this as well, and then we'll take up the questions.
Yeah, essentially, this particular problem segment is got to do with improving search and quality of search result for different buyer applications, right? Today, if you, for example, search and people are coming in from different backgrounds, and they use different vernacular languages. And they can search, and essentially a buyer application should be able to accept all those particular searches and produce relevant results. So, for example, if someone is searching Maggie, to ensure that the spelling, all kinds of permutation combination of Maggie, all its variants essentially come into the search result for a buyer applications and become extremely important. Secondly, it also gives opportunity for a seller application, because like I said earlier also, it's an unbundled environment. A seller application might send across the spelling of Maggie as Magi, and another seller application might actually send it across as Maggi. Essentially, both of them are actually selling the same product, and the catalog indexing essentially should bring about an opportunity for both the seller applications to be allowed to showcase their particular product to the consumer, and with all their variations in terms of color, product, name, price, as has been mentioned here. So how do you basically use that as a mechanism to improve the search results for a buyer application is the crux of the problem.
Yeah, again, another it's a critical piece in the overall ONDC flow, where consumer, when they search, they should get the right product. So we have seen atta being searched and Maggi atta noodle coming on top, whereas there is Ashirwad atta somewhere down the line because of various search things. So the standard products being used in the market, something like an Algolia, for instance, which probably uses Elasticsearch. Similar products could be something which can be brought out, and self-learning methodologies like this typical AI, where consumer clicks on a particular item, which is the third item, so then it goes up, etc., etc. So I think again the problem is there are varying types of buyer NPs. So we have larger players who can invest in search themselves, but there are other players who may not be as sophisticated. So there is a gap there, and you can potentially come in and build a business also around that.
Sure. Thank you so much. I hope all of you are getting insights more on the problem statements, and you must be having a couple of questions. Feel free to post them on the chat, and we'll pick up the questions from there at the end of the session. Last 10 minutes, we'll find out space and we'll pick up questions from the chat box. So requesting everyone is just to put across a quick, let me just, Vaibhav, if you're there, and just confirm if Supriya is with you.
No, he'll join in remotely at 3:30.
Sure, definitely. So let's just begin with then coming back to the same problem statement, catalog digitization. We've got questions coming from the audience before, the participants, as well as I can see a couple of questions in the chat as well. So yeah, we'll pick up one questions. So I'll just prompt the questions for you guys can answer so that the masses can hear it. So we're referring to catalog digitization. The first question that I have with me is, what are the key challenges faced by seller and seller apps in digitization large catalogs with diverse attributes?
So let me take that. So again, as I mentioned, there are different types of seller apps we have, and many of these seller apps have a core business. For instance, somebody could be a POS service provider. So e-commerce per se may not have been their forte. Okay, so they probably have a system which is used by a seller to maintain their billing, etc. So each of these people, when they come on ONDC and become a seller NP, they create a team and they create the catalog from scratch, literally, which has to be sent over the network. So that's a cost aspect to it. Also, there is assuming that there will always be attrition at the seller NPs. There is a chance that the knowledge is lost as to how to even categorize, and it's a very person dependent thing. It is the scale at which it runs doesn't justify huge teams, etc., which creates redundancy issues. So one is the cost, the other is this redundancy issue. That's one main challenge that is faced, and getting the data right from the store or the seller to their own platform itself is a challenge. So how do you suppose you have a sales guy who goes to field and he signs up a store? How do you very quickly get that store digitized? It could be, for instance, a pet food shop where a sales guy goes and sells. Can you get that sales store live in, say, 1 hour or 2 hours? So that's the kind of challenge that the seller NP faces, because the faster you sell and get the stores online, the better it is for us, because the seller really wants to see store online really fast. So you come and sold the ONDC proposition to the seller. The seller wants to see that store before the on network, before the store goes live, before the sales guy goes out of the shop. So that's the level of challenge that seller apps face. So today is done. Maybe it will take 3-4 days for a store to go live. How do you crunch that into a few hours? That's one thing. There are standardized products. There are non-standardized products. Especially in the case of non-standardized products, how do you capture the image, the right angle, the right lighting, the right look and feel without losing the actual image quality? In the sense, it should not be some artificial stuff. You put a product which doesn't look like the real thing, that will result in a complaint later on by the end consumer. So you really want to get it right on the picture front, on the description, in correct short description, etc., whatever is required as per the taxonomy for that particular product. That is something which is of a challenge, and these are some of the points I can think of when it comes to challenge for the seller NPs.
Sure, thanks for answering that. Vaibhav, if you want to add something, or should we go to next?
Yeah, I think Abey has covered it well.
Sure, thank you. So there's another question that I have is, are there specific requirements for Indic language support in the interfaces used for catalog digitization?
No, so I will basically take it up. So we can add what essentially we are seeking is that that today, that if someone is using say voice-based digitization, catalog digitization as one of the solutions for digitization, then it should definitely support Indic languages as well, right? Like, so at least, like, for example, 3 languages odd, essentially the program should support. I think that's the basic requirement from that perspective.
Sure, understood. Thank you so much for addressing that, Vaibhav. Following up that, we have, are there any constraints or limitations on the technology that participants can use for catalog digitization?
No. Hello. There is no constraint, there is no limitation. Hello.
All right.
I honestly did not really get that question.
Mhm.
From one particular perspective, for you saying that limitation of technologies. I mean, as long as it is, there should not be a proprietary risk per se, but other than that, there is no limitation. Abey,
Yeah. See, where there probably what I read there is what type of technology should be used. Should it be an app or should it be web-based, etc.? I think that's what probably that alludes to. It should be usable by the seller NP easily. That is, ease of use should be priority, is my sense. So it should be, if you have an SDK, etc., it should be usable. And person who raised that question can further ask details if you want.
Sure, definitely. If you have joined us, please put across a follow-up question in the chat. We can take it up from there. Maybe we can go ahead with this with the last question of the category, which, can you elaborate on the expected user experience for sellers while digitizing a catalog with at least 1,000 SKUs?
yeah. So at least I'll go again on this one. Like we initially discussed, right? Like there are two aspects of it. One is speed. The other one is accuracy and correctness of catalog digitization. Essentially, we're looking at what kind of new technologies can be built in for scale, which can help digitize someone's catalog fairly quickly. And there's no definition of per se quickly, but we are saying that how efficient your system is, that today, if anyone wants to digitize their particular catalog, it gets done in a fast manner. That is one part. Second is, even though it is getting digitized, it essentially should cover up all the requisite attributes which are required to sell that particular product. So if today I want to say, for example, sell on Amazon, they have very clear-cut definitions of what is required to list this particular product up. So hence the technology which is used to digitize, and for example, if I'm scanning, say a Maggie ketchup bottle, it should reflect Maggie ketchup bottle, right? So that correctness then becomes super critical. So these are the two basic expectations from that sense. Over to you, Abey, if you have anything else.
So see, I mean, the typical seller that we are wanting to digitize with this would be the kirana shop guy, the local pet shop, the weaver in Tanjavur, etc., right? So those could be one categorization where we are not looking at, say, large corporates digitizing their catalog. Say, Spar digitizing their catalog is not what we are looking at here, right? So to that extent, it should be usable by the person on ground. So if it is in local language, yes, that would be good. And like somebody else asked, should it be voice based? So does it can it be done voice based? So those are some of the aspects that we can look at in terms of the user experience for seller. And it should be easy, super easy, and those guys don't really like complexity or multiple stages. So it should be as simple as take a scan of the item or photo of the item, and then a lot of the data can be suggested also to the seller to just pre-select, etc., right? So those kind of an approach would be useful. These are all my views. I mean, you please feel free to do better, right? These are, with our limitations, we think like this.
Sorry, 1 second, Shakti. While we go deeper into, we can come back on more questions which we have asked. We have Supriyo Ghosh with us, who is the chief architect of ONDC. Very, very senior person amongst us. He's going to take up the catalog indexing question. Unfortunately, he has just about 15-20 minutes with us. So if you can quickly move to the catalog indexing part of it, before we can jump back to do catalog digitization again, I would want him to basically take up questions on catalog indexing.
For
So
sure.
Priya, just like a shout out, please.
Sure. Thanks, Vaibhav.
Hi, Supriyo. Thanks
Hi.
for joining. Sure, we were discussing, we had a great insight from Abey and Vaibhav on catalog indexing. We have questions coming from the participants. We've got those gathered before. So if I may start with, I have got a question that can you provide insight into specific challenges faced in catalog indexing for different types of catalogs, example, grocery, fashion, electronics, and so on?
See, the challenges, first of all, this is the first time that we are trying to actually create a proper catalog indexing engine. If you look at different categories, those are very different. So I would say grocery catalog is probably the easiest, but fashion is the most complicated. There are lots of different attributes that are used, and the way we have kind of created all these different categories is there are different sets of attributes for each of these categories. Now, a typical issue in indexing is that if you see the indexing is what? So you have catalog data set, which is there, and that is like in huge volumes. So let's say there are like hundreds of millions of catalog items which are there. Now, somebody wants to index the catalog. Now, what catalog indexing actually will do is, any search criteria that you specify. A typical example could be a keyword. For example, I'm looking for winter wear. Now, winter wear means what? Winter wear means, it could be like thermal wear, it could be woolen wear, it could be like so many different things, right? Sweatshirts, shirts, so many different kinds of things. Now, so what we actually are, so that is one part of it in terms of catalog indexing. Second is somebody from the buyer app side. If you look at the buyer app, which actually provides the user experience from the buyer app side, if I say something like, okay, I want to search for pizza. Now, there are different levels there. So, for example, one is identifying, okay, what exactly am I asking for? Am I asking for an item? Am I asking for a merchant? I mean, it could be like Pizza Hut. It could be like a pizza item that I'm asking for. So there is something called as entity recognition. And after the entity recognition, then it actually, so first of all, it is able to identify what exactly I want, because the usage, the way that I'm going to enter the search criteria is, I just give like some kind of free text. We can parse the free text and create some kind of a structured query. But the actual, response that comes back is, there are like different levels of intelligence which come in. One is, identifying the entity. Then when I asked for pizza, it searches for similar items along with pizza. It might show me garlic bread. It might show me, Coke or whatever, right? Desserts. So those kinds of things. So if you look at the catalog indexing, it is like there are different levels, and it could be something very simple which starts with a structured query, but it goes into more and more of pattern matching. Identifying similar items, identifying items that have exhibited similar kind of patterns, similar kind of patterns in the past. So the technology that comes closest to it, if you look at, there were some queries I saw which was about structured query on, inverted index and all that. I think it's going to be a combination of everything. So if you actually think about it, it's like multiple layers, and the technology which comes closest to simulating that in the real world is actually LLMs. So that's why we made a mention of LLMs in the problem statements. But yeah, so if you look at challenges, it's basically the volumes, and second is how do you actually retrieve the items that a buyer is looking for. Identifying the exact match, similar match, and at some level of pattern matching. So that I would say is the challenge. And just to give you an example, I mean, earlier today I was actually seeing on the internet there is this comparison between somebody went and did a search of top 10 winter recipes. They did a search in Google, they did a search in another UI, and the kind of another app, and the kind of response that it was showing was very different. So catalog indexing is important, and if you can come up with a proper model for catalog indexing, that will actually go a long way towards a very good buyer experience. Does that answer your question, or do you want anything more specific on this?
No, that really helps actually. So if the the person who asked this question is on the call with us, maybe we can have more insights and maybe you can put across a follow-up question if that is needed. Sure. So we'll take up another question from the chat. Maybe there's a long question asked by Ishan Raja. So the ONDC catalog attributes are defined in multiple places. Can you guide what direction will ONDC move forward? That is, will the product communication protocol be standardized?
See, what we've done is, there are, so the catalogs that we have, there are some set of standard attributes, which is like, there is a price, there is a name, there is an image, there's a description. So some very standard attributes, but majority of these attributes are dynamic, as we call it key value pairs. Now, the standardizing that we have done is kind of, we've defined the standard keys. Otherwise, the issue that comes up is if you say something like a size. Now, I write size, somebody else writes size in a different way, and it'll be a problem to interpret what exactly is size. So what we've done is we've kind of created a standard set of keys, and it is for the sellers, to decide what they want to send, what they don't want to send. Now, we've also defined a baseline, which is a small set of attributes we've said is mandatory, because if you define a product, you have to define a name for that product, you have to define a price for that product, you have to define whether, maybe if there's an image, you can provide it. And for some cases, like if I'm giving a fashion catalog for a shirt, right, I need a size chart and all that. So very, very small set of attributes we've defined as mandatory, but majority of the rest is optional. Now, if a seller actually wants better visibility, better discoverability on the buyer app, they'll actually send a lot more of those attributes, and the buyer app can also come up with a really good buyer experience. Because what we've seen is that as you get into high value add purchases, the buyer becomes a lot more discerning. They want to search based on lots of different parameters. It's not as simple as buying atta or sugar. If I want a sweater, I want to know, okay, what is the neck type, what kind of fabric, what is the color. So lots of different things I see. So that is the direction that we are taking.
Sure, thank you so much.
Can I ask Shakti? It's my question. Can I ask one more thing on that, please? If it's okay. Because later I have to come up. So my question is, my only one question I have, which is very important, is the structured query part. Is it like this, like an Amazon app, and I go and I keep on filtering products based on filters? Is that what you mean by a structured query?
Right. So that structured query, that is what structured query is. Yeah. So whatever Amazon does, we have support for the same thing in ONDC as well. I don't know if you've seen our catalog templates.
Sir, I have. Okay. Sir, I have seen the
catalog. Check out fashion catalog template. That is the most comprehensive that we have.
I know. So there's a mandatory informational one and compulsory one and other informational ones.
Yeah, but the kind of filters that you're talking about, right? Those are basically the key filters that we're telling.
So those are going to be standardized across the network.
The names, yes. The names, not necessarily the values. Yes.
One more thing. So should we push the indexes to the buyer app or just provide the result?
No, actually, the indexes are required on both ends. So if you see the seller, right? But the types of indexes will be slightly different. If you look at it on the seller side, I would probably say, okay, give me a list of all the winter wear that you have, right? But on the buyer side, it could be something that's a lot more refined, like I want to buy pizza. But on the buyer side, you actually want to show the buyer different things, not just pizza, items related to pizza. Maybe there are some items on which there are offers. So there's the similarity search,
Yes, sir. I know similarity search. I got it.
That actually plays a more role, because if you look at the experience, right? If you look at the difference in functionality on the buyer side, it's more of user experience. On the seller side, it's more of optimizing the response.
So you're not expecting it to be conversational rather than a tool which can index very efficiently, right?
I think indexing, making it conversational. I don't know how exactly it will work, but it is more to index it efficiently. And even there, if you can get the basics right, I think we can solve a lot of the current problems today.
Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you so much, Rizan. Thank you so much, Supri, for answering that. I've got another question quickly. We'll pull up that. How does the Catalogue Indexing Engine contribute to improving the performance of catalog language models?
Okay, so if you see the catalog language models, I mean, if you see any LLM, right? Now, I'm sure you guys know everything. Most of you must have heard about ChatGPT and the kind of architecture that it is based on. LLMs, most LLMs, pretty much every LLM, they have this architecture called, they have this component called a transformer. And one part of the transformer is like, what they call as a feed-forward model. Now, that feed-forward model is entirely based on pattern matching, right? So pattern matching is nothing else but all the things that I talked about, right? Entity recognition, similarity search. It's more like business context specific searches that happen at more and more refined levels. So I think if we can, so in other words, it kind of if we can come up with a proper LLM, then that will lead to an efficient indexing engine. I don't think it will work the other way around, but this one I'm pretty much convinced it will.
Sure. There's another last question that I would like to ask, and then maybe I can pick up one question from the chat. Can you provide examples of successful catalog indexing engines in various industry categories?
So I think on catalog indexing itself, no, I haven't seen. And most of the things that the large e-commerce players do, it's pretty proprietary. I'm not sure what they have done. But one place I've seen is Aadhaar, for example. They use an inverted index, like if when you do a search and all, they have like an inverted index model in place. But this use of LLMs for catalog indexing is something that I'm sure lots of people are trying out right now, but LLM as a technology itself is new. But successful, implementation based on Elasticsearch, I think there are quite a few. So everybody that has a, e-commerce portal, or anyone that's a major e-commerce player, I'm pretty sure they use Elasticsearch or similar types of searches, in their products. Has anybody tried it using LLM? I'm sure lots of people are trying, but I haven't seen anything that actually works, using LLM.
No worries. Thank you so much for answering that, Supriyo. So we have a question to pick up from the chat. So I'll pick up from Chirag Rana. So you ask, are you looking at predictive search for better product searchability, or are there any other ways around that you're looking for?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
So he's asking, are you looking at predictive search for better product searchability, or are there any other ways around?
Predictive search, that's pretty interesting. I'm not sure, how that will work out here. So predictive search. So can you explain? I mean, what do you mean by predictive search? So if I search for, let's say, winter wear, what is the predictive search here?
So if I could just come off mute and
please go ahead.
That's good. Right. So my question was that since we understand that we are talking about volumes and volumes of data, it's not just about just one category. It's huge amount of data. So my question was that, are we looking at something called a predictive search, where there could be an AI model attached to your search engine, which automatically starts predicting about that what this person might be looking for, or like currently, if you take an example of some AI tools which is being used by Amazon or some others. Just a thought.
Yeah, no. So that actually is going to play a role on the buyer app side, on the user experience, right? Once a buyer starts making their purchases through any e-commerce app, the buyer app will get an understanding of what exactly this buyer is looking for at what point of time, on which day, and so on and so forth, right?
Correct.
So that buyer apps can do. I mean, that they can create, and they have technologies available for that. So this is more like customizing their e-commerce interface for a specific buyer, or rather creating a personalized interface for a buyer, right?
Understood.
I think that is technology that is already there, and I don't think there is much of. It's more like it's more of a auto regression problem, right? Based on your past, you decide what you may want in future.
Exactly.
And I think this tech is already in place. And for anybody that is a serious e-commerce player, they will have something of this kind, right? But as of now, it's more like
it's more like what I said, efficiently retrieving from volumes and volumes of data, as you mentioned. That is one thing. Second thing is, supporting like free text search on the buyer app. So if somebody's trying to search for, search using some free text, then giving a proper response. And and these kinds of problems, if you actually go to any e-commerce app today, I mean, even on ONDC, you'll see where there are issues, right? So even free text search, it doesn't work that well on any of our e-commerce buyer apps today.
Yes. Perfect. Supriyo, just to build on that question, I'm sure we must be also looking at upselling and cross-selling functions. Like, for example, if a person is looking out for an engine oil, he might also be looking out for some other machine tool parts, which could be complementing that engine oil.
So that is more of what I would say is similarity search, right? So I'm searching for something. What are the other related items? What are the other items related to that, right? Yeah, I think that is something that will be really useful in the LLM.
Perfect.
It'll be there, the more refined layer of the LLM.
Perfect. Thanks, Supriyo.
Sure. Thanks, Chirag.
Thanks, Shakti.
Thank you, Supriyo, for answering that. Supriyo, if your time allows, I can pick up one more question for you.
Sure.
And therefore, we can go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, there's another question coming in from Rizan. Okay, that's about catalogs are primarily filtered by the ONDC primarily on geo availability. In that case, do we have to work on geospatial indexing as part of the indexing solution?
No, so geospatial indexing, it is, we have this concept of serviceability. And there are different ways that the sellers, they specify the serviceability. And buyer apps, based on the buyer location, they actually know whether a store is going to service that buyer or not. Now, this is using standard geospatial, tech, which is already available today. You would have heard of things like polygons and, primarily polygons. That is actually the most important component. But this is tech which is available today. I don't think we need anything more. It's of course the large players who actually have maps, whether it's Google or Mapples, they have this technology available today. I think building something like this from scratch, maybe some other day. Yeah, but as of now, I think this mechanism is already in place.
Sure. Thank you so much for addressing that. And with that, we're done with this category. Thank you so much, Supriyo, for answering all of those questions. If further you have more questions related to Catalogue Indexing Engine, please feel free to reach out to us on the official email that is present on the website itself. And we'll get that answered from Supriyo and his team.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Supriyo, for being there with us. Okay. So coming back to the third category, which is Catalogue Scoring. Abey, Vaibhav, so we'll pick up the questions if you guys are ready.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay, so the first question is, can you provide examples of how a poor quality catalog adversely affects the user experience in buyer apps?
Yeah, I think if we have ever searched or purchased anything online, we know that if we look at a particular, firstly we end up most often than not buying something which has a good catalog in the sense that the right title is there, descriptive bullet points are there, nice images are there. So one, it really helps in improving conversion for buyer applications. The second part of it is if the catalog is not correct. So for example, if the title says men's jacket, but the image says women's jacket, or the woman, the image calls out that it is it looks like a woman's jacket, and you receive a woman's jacket in that sense. So you end up returning more often than not, right? So and it then also adds cost for both seller applications and buyer applications. So not only does it adversely impact the customer because they end up either not purchasing or having a bad experience post-purchase, it also adds cost for both the buyer application as well as seller application. Yeah, I think someone has their hand raised.
Yeah, Shreyansh has a question in the chat as well. Maybe we can pick up Shreyansh. If team, you can unmute Shreyansh and Shreyash, if you can.
Hello everyone. I wanted to say that in order to get catalog scoring as well as catalog indexing, we need to focus on the catalog digitization part in the first, because if we have a proper efficient catalog digitization, we can go for the catalog scoring, and through that we can go for the catalog indexing. So I guess there it is not separate things, but it is a thing as a whole that we are focusing on catalog digitization, following catalog scoring, and finally coming to the catalog indexing. So let's suppose.
I agree with. I'll pick it up. I agree with you. Essentially, catalog itself is a huge animal, right? The idea of segregating it is that it gives us opportunity to experiment and innovate in each of these areas. Essentially, there are like a lot of agencies who do good work in the catalog scoring part. And they can really innovate around that. Similarly, there is someone who can do very, very good job in terms of catalog digitization, right? So the system or the buildforbharat today allows you to register in all these three things as long as you fall in the right category. Just to reiterate, catalog scoring is a foundational problem. It is meant only for students. The catalog digitization and catalog indexing are part of the scalable solutions, wherein everyone else can participate, right? So, the disintegration of these three elements just adds on or gives our people an opportunity to innovate and ideate in each of these areas, saying that it doesn't stop anyone from attempting all these three. That's also absolutely fine.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Shreyash. Thank you so much, Vaibhav, for addressing that. I'll pick up another question quickly. So, Aarti has an interesting question. She asked, who is supposed to score the catalog? Is it at a network level or done by every BAP? Will there be multiple teams which own master catalogs and offer it as a service?
No. So essentially speaking, the catalog is owned by the seller and the seller network participant. So that is point one. The catalog is not owned by a buyer application. The scoring can be done by a third-party agency, depending upon, and there can be so many multiple scenarios in which buyer application has a certain defined rule, and we do not know how it will evolve. But like they can be like say, or this particular agency can sort of today say that this is the best mechanism to score someone's catalog and supply it. It's just like today we all have CIBIL score, right? Like there is a particular agency which has defined saying that someone's credit rating is best measured in this particular manner, and that gets used by multiple applications. In the same way, a particular score can be used by multiple buyer applications to determine how good a seller application's catalog is. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks for adding that up, Vaibhav. I think Aarti's got a follow-up question with us. If Aarti, team, if you can.
So, Vaibhav, when you say that the catalog is owned by the seller, the way I am looking at it is that that instance of the catalog would be owned by the seller, right? And I'm talking about these large FMCG brands or people who have like standardized catalogs. Is it possible that tomorrow there are going to be startups or agencies or whatever, right? Companies who would sort of have master catalogs sourced and made available and scored, right? And these scores can be given by BAPs or they can be given by the network or whatever, but a scored catalogs available, and then the different seller aggregators, right, make these available. This catalog gets offered as a service by these companies to the MSNs, which sort of ensures that the sellers or the seller aggregators are not doing catalog again and again, especially for the products which are like standardized. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely right. I mean that makes perfect sense. And honestly speaking, Abey is here. We are also having doing something similar in terms of creating catalog as a service, which a small, and that also ties up to catalog digitization as a problem, right? Wherein we are creating, or someone can essentially create a master catalog which can be used by so many people who would say essentially want that particular catalog, and that catalog can first be scored or be scored on thereafter. The only caveat out there is that catalog do end up changing a lot. So you have to ensure that the veracity or the trust of the score that is getting generated with this particular agency is high. I mean, but the idea and essentially the implementation of it will definitely work, and there is definitely some amount of work which is also happening and eventually these business models will do evolve.
Great. Cool. I think something which had been running on my mind forever. Thanks, Vaibhav, for your input.
Right.
Thank you so much for adding that up, Aarti, and thanks for adding that. Coming to the next questions, similar question that Aarti had: what criteria define a minimum acceptable quality of catalogs, and how can these be objectively measured?
I mean, essentially that is the problem statement. That you have to create like an objective criterion for it, and if you are able to score it, then the next part of it is what can be the minimum threshold. I mean, that, in my view, will have the view of the user of this particular catalog score. So, a particular buyer application might actually have a different threshold versus another particular buyer application. Like today, if I again and again come back to the same use case of someone using my CIBIL score to give me a loan, right? Like an ICICI bank, you might use that particular CIBIL score and is okay with giving me a loan even if, for example, I have a CIBIL score of, I don't know, like a poorer CIBIL score, and an HDFC bank might have a more stringent one. So first is to create like a CIBIL score, have the right parameters across all the dimensions and across all the categories. Ensure that people trust the CIBIL score. I think that is what the problem is, that we need to first create that particular catalog score. Ensure that all the elements are essentially checked. Once that particular score is objectively created, how is that getting used? What can be the combination of that particular score that can be used over the network? Essentially, that has to go over the network. Is what is the second part of it, which in my view would be used by the buyer applications, and obviously the seller applications to improve the catalog.
Sure, thanks for adding that up, and answering to that question as well. Coming to the next question, are there any privacy or security concerns associated with catalog scoring that participants?
As long as you should avoid having business sensitive information. I mean, the catalog scoring is essentially is to do with the fact that the rules can be set as such that you focus on the quality of the catalog in whatever the 3C sense that you have written here. However, would avoid having going into the whole business sensitive part of it as to what is the price of say like an iPhone, hypothetically speaking. But saying that a catalog essentially is, and a digital catalog is out there. So I am not sure whether there is a privacy concern from that particular. So yeah, that's what I have in mind. Abey, if you have anything else to add to this one, please feel free to do so.
No, that's fine.
I think Vasudevan has raised his hand.
Sorry, who's raised?
Someone has raised his or her hand.
Yeah, Vasudevan, if you're there with us, ask a question.
Sir, actually, my question is based on catalog digitalization. Can I ask it?
Okay, let's actually finish up catalog scoring, and then we'll move to catalog digitization as well.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, thank you. Vaibhav, Abey, if you can help us understand what mechanisms can be put in place to ensure fairness and transparency in catalog scoring for sellers, is what my next question is.
I mean, I can only give ideas around it. I think that is again part of the expected solutioning that we are expecting from participants here. I mean, there can be the use of mechanism like credentials being used to ensure that the catalog code is protected, and by protected I mean there is a maker of catalog score, and then there is obviously like a checker. So in that sense, because a buyer application is today going to make business decisions based on this catalog score, a seller network participant whose catalog is basically being scored and sent across to a buyer application should not fiddle with that with the score. Essentially, is what I believe the question is. So I mean, one of the mechanisms that can be used by use credits, but we are expecting the participants out here, to actually give us solutions, whether over the network this can be relayed successfully. I mean, there are other scoring, badging, and all which are also done outside ONDC network. I mean, I think I would say that take cues from there as to how are they relaying that information to so many players, ensuring that is not getting that there's some amount of security around that.
Sure, that answers, I guess, if that is a question from the masses and come across and somebody from the audience here with us. The next question to that would be, how will the effectiveness of a catalog scoring solution be evaluated over time?
I mean, that's only time to tell. I can only say that today our decisions are taken on how good or bad is the catalog score. So one good way of answering this is the network today mandates all buyer applications to release their catalog, to release their sorting and filtering criteria, right? And once catalog score becomes a part of the information which is being relayed, definitely catalog score will become as one of the sorting filtering criteria for buyer applications. And hence, someone which has a higher catalog will be essentially either be given higher prominence or will be used in filtering, in my view. Again, that is something that will evolve over time. For now, we need to at least give that visibility for buyer applications on the quality of catalog which is being relayed over the network.
Sure. There is another quick question on the chat. Does a consumer have a say in catalog scoring or rating the system?
I mean, for sure they should. Right today, if someone calls out, and the solutioning in my view can also include ensuring that you filter out all the spurious comments also. So in short, yes, the consumer should have a say in catalog scoring, or essentially if they're actually not the scoring, but in my view, if consumers do call out, if there's a discrepancy in the catalog which has not actually featured in the score as well, that can be then that definitely can have a loop, like feedback loop mechanism. Yeah, that's about it. Aarti has a question.
Aarti has another question.
So, not a question really, but just adding to what Vaibhav is saying about catalog scoring, right? So the way I see it is that any catalog would have two sections, right? One which is the mandatory section, which I think ONDC is already working on, saying these attributes have to be captured mandatorily for any product to be displayed in terms of pictures or in terms of information content or whatever. And then there are going to be good to have features, right? Which is to say that this is an additional information which the producers, the manufacturers, not just the sellers, but the manufacturers might want to give out for the consumers, right? For the end customers. And the scoring which we are talking about has to be a factor of these two things, right? Completeness is already ensured by what I think the network is defining at this point of time, right? Saying these are mandatory fields, and that ensures the completeness. The scoring has to include these non-compulsory, non-mandatory fields for the catalog to look good or to to appeal to the customer. And that is where I think the buyer apps might have their own criterias on how good or bad or how they're evaluating the catalog. And like Vaibhav was saying, that is yet to evolve, right? On what and I think a lot of that will also depend on the categories which the buyer apps will want to start focusing on. Right now, we are seeing that the buyer apps are all generic buyer apps, right? But in near future, the way it might pan out is the buyer apps would become very, very specialized for product categories. And that is when they would start dictating on how the catalogs would appear to them or what type of information they would want to show their communities or to their end customers. Does that make sense to people here?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Thanks, Aarti, for reinforcing this. I mean, it can even evolve further. Today, we might have, as per our basic understanding, and essentially it's a network of both buyer applications, seller applications, who are nudging us to say that these are the basic mandatory fields. But tomorrow, a particular buyer application might say that, listen, for me the mandatory fields are X plus YY. No, they might actually say that today I will not include anyone's catalog which does not have a feature which today we are not mandating. But as a seller application, I want to ensure that my catalog is rendered for that particular buyer application and also scored, because that becomes as a part of their, like I said, sorting and filtering criteria. The solutioning essentially, should also factor in my view, the eventual variableness of the requirements of these particular buyer applications as well, right? So even from the completeness perspective, there can be an attribute there which is today optional, but for a buyer application it is very, very important or into the mandatory field. So how does the system basically ensure that there is a scoring done on all these three particular parameters and then therefore relayed back to the buyer application essentially is what will solve or what will close loop this whole piece.
But then, Vaibhav, if I may, the way you're saying that the buyer apps would start making fields mandatory, but wouldn't that be sort of against the governance policies? Because then we are saying that they would have the liberty to exclude certain this thing, right? And for every product to get listed.
I mean, from that particular perspective, no, I know we are probably digressing a bit, but think about from this sense, the network doesn't get into the business of a buyer application. A buyer application might say that, listen here, I would want to serve only the most premiumest of the customers. I'm not saying now, but today, like you said, there can be someone who says that, I will only serve someone which gives me 5 images for everything, which ensures that the image are of a certain pixel dimension, ensures that the description should have at least 5 bullet points, so on and so forth. Because that, even though my customer base might be fewer, but I would want to ensure that I give the best customer experience to these to at least this set of customers. Now, is it against the net policy? Definitely no. It is the choice of that particular buyer applications, and hence the catalog score also should reflect this particular aspect of this particular buyer application. It doesn't go against the network governance. It is, but at the same time, it ensures that whoever then or whoever is sort of complying with the requirements of this particular buyer application should be treated fairly.
That I agree. As in, right now I mean, everybody is open to everybody, but I'm sure future is going to have, the platformish behavior sort of coming up, because after all, it's capitalistic world, right? So
I would not say that it is platformish behavior. I mean, there will be vertical streams, or people who will sort of create niches around certain areas, and rightly so, because that's where also you'll start seeing more innovation from both buyer side as well as seller side. I think Shakti would want to go ask the forward because
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but can we take this discussion offline, because we're running out of time. We already exceeded the time itself. So I'll pull up the last question for today, and maybe we can wrap up this session. So one last question that I have is, are there any industry standard or benchmarks that participants should consider when developing a catalog scoring mechanism?
No, there is currently no, at least in my research, there has been no industry benchmarks. Please feel free to create an India first industry benchmark.
Sure. So I have no further questions. All the questions that are on the chat.
I think there were a few questions on catalog digitization. I think there was one particular person who had already raised his hand. So we should pick up that.
One question from maybe, and due to time constraint, we might not be able to take up other questions today, but we'll take those questions offline and we'll circulate it to you, Vaibhav and Abey. And
let's actually take up that question because we asked that gentleman to wait. So,
sure. So, if you're there with us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So we are asked to measure the throughput of digitization. Can we measure it with a return on investment for the sellers or with the suppliers' experience? How can we measure that?
Can you come again? You're asking whether the throughput should be measured with return on investment from seller side or the experience?
Or it's based upon the seller or client experience. Like we are asked to rate the clients based upon the star ratings.
No. So at least from my particular expectation, and we can sort of add up here. The throughput is measuring the speed of catalog
digitization.
More of your ROI in some sense, but I would want to see how quickly are you able to correctly digitize someone's catalog.
That's exactly what it is.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
Kumar Gupta is raised his hand, or are we done?
Yes.
This is a short question, if I may ask. How can I reach to Abey directly? We would like to discuss a few things to you, Abey.
I mean, we have a LinkedIn here. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn also. Unless Abey wants to share his number here.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You can reach out to both of our speakers.
Yeah, just ping me on LinkedIn. I'll connect with you.
Okay, I just did that, Kumar Gupta.
Okay, we'll do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who has a direct question to the speakers, maybe you can reach out to them directly to LinkedIn and ask your questions. But moreover, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And it was a great session. And before ending today's AMA session, this is a general reminder that we have another session if your known ones are there already with us. We have another session coming around in next 30-40 minutes, which is more into legal compliance and product safety negotiation engine. If you have any of your folks there and around, just let them know. But thank you so much, Abey. Thank you so much, Vaibhav. Supriya has already been there with us as a support. Thank you so much for being there with us, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It was a great session today, very interesting, insightful, and we look forward to your innovative solutions coming ahead before the submission ends. So thank you so much. We'll see you around on the other.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you a lot, Shakti.
Thank you so much.
you.